Perfect. Well,
Thank you
I'll
for
just go
coming,
ahead.
everyone.
So yes, thank you everybody. The ones that are here, this is a really, really good discussion, and I will hope you guys are going to enjoy it. Psychedelics and their role in functional medicine. Um, as you can see here, I've been in functional medicine for about 25 years. I've been 15 years I did in inpatient medical detox, 13 years in advanced ketamine therapy, but I have been studying psychedelics for 15 to 20. I'm the founder and CEO of My Practice Connect, and you can see down at the bottom, aging is inevitable and decline is optional. I think that when you the goal of this talk is to introduce a concept that I think is going to be emerging and is very exciting, which is the term of functional psychedelic medicine. And you can see from my experiences, I've had a very unique opportunity between detox medicine, functional medicine, and psychedelics. I feel I have found an opportunity to build on, but a way to look at or navigate through medicine differently now. Most of ketamine therapy is done by psychiatric medicine. So, to the number of functional medicine providers or even traditional conventional medical providers that are doing ketamine is very minimal. So again, psychedelics have long been utilized in psychiatry. But you're going to see more and more why it is fitting to be introduced into functional medicine and why they connect. But based off of all of the experiences, by looking at psychedelics, ibogaine, ayahuasca, ketamine, LSD, MDMA, psilocybin, there's just so much research that has been done. And when you look at the research and you dive deep into this, the combination of both seems logical. And once you're done with this, hopefully I'm giving you a compelling reason to explore deeper, or to listen to some of the facts that I provide to see how there is an opportunity in this area of medicine. And it's just expanding on what we're already doing. Um, but I think this is an exciting area of medicine that's evolving, and you're going to see it's coming pretty quickly. So you can see the definition here, functional psychedelic medicine. This is my interpretation of what it means, and I think you're going to see this term and other terms related to uh, medicine of the brain, utilizing lifestyle or not traditional philosophies. So real quick, the reality, diseases of the brain are on the rise, and that's really diseases of all systems are on the rise. But, it's interesting that when you look at medicine and the diagnostics, the diagnostic codes, you can see that every area of brain disease is on the rise. Depression, anxiety, substance abuse, all the neurodegenerative diseases, dysthymia, which is pretty much the norm, which dysthymia is just a low-level depression that's just ongoing, general cognitive decline or brain fog, and then, of course, burnout, which to me is just that feeling of being stuck. You're just stuck. You're in a pattern where you can't break it. You're not seeing the health advancements as you want. You know you could be doing better. There's things that you could be actively pursuing, and you're just not. And you're going to find that there's reasons for this. And despite all of our knowledge and all of our spending, outcomes are worsening. And this is the reality. I mean, and it's when you simply focus on the problem, it's so obvious of the failures and limitations that something has to happen. And when you're a numbers person and you look at the rise of all disease, and everyone just sitting back and oh, we might need to do some research in that area. We don't have time for research, and that is the reason for this discussion. So I like the title of this slide, The Age of Cognitive Assault, because this is it. This is where we're facing. You got modern lifestyles, sedentary behavior, poor diet, sleep disruption, chronic stress, and then pervasive digital environment. This is it. I mean, they predict by 2030 that we're going to be outside 3% of our life. Our diets are poor, our food manufacturing's poor. We've never had worse circadian rhythms due to a lot of the things we're talking about. Chronic stress is at an all-time high. And then you look at modern medicine. You know, 70% of the adult population is on a daily pharmaceutical regimen. There's only about 15% of the adults in America that are metabolically healthy. The rates of carbohydrate addiction in children, the rate of obesity and chronic disease in our youth has never been higher. And then you look at online stimulation. We're dealing with a situation where our youth that should have very strong dopaminergic systems, we're having people with pleasure diseases, disorders. The online stimulation is taking us to a point where there's no slowdown. You're going to see, we're going to talk a lot about sympathetic tone. Um, but the stimulation is something our brains aren't or weren't prepared for, and they're still not prepared for. We look at the excessive digital technologies, and again, you can look up information on EMF and blue light. You can try to find any research that support that EMF might be bad for us. They just say it's not considered clinically relevant now. But I guarantee that anybody that puts AirPods in their ears or they're sitting there looking at their phones nonstop all day, the phones by their beds, they use an EMF detector, and you can see the amount of EMF that's coming out of these devices. I would be shocked if everyone hasn't thought about it, thought just if this EMF is really bad for us. We all assume it is, but we really can't escape it. And of course, research isn't supporting that it's bad. And it's the same with blue light. When you look at what we know blue light does, constant blue light from screens, if this was something that came out for a children medicine and they were describing, well, this has the side effects of hormonal disruption, circadian rhythm disruption, issues with neuroinflammation, it wouldn't pass. We know these things are happening. You could make an ICD-9 code about it or ICD-10 code about it, but yet they're just sitting there going dormant because nobody wants to address it. The technology is not going to stop. We have to adapt to it and deal with it. But these things are an assault on our brains. So when we look at the limitations of traditional medicine, this is no shocker. We have no true cures for brain disease, and that's a fact, and we never have. What traditional medicine brings us? Symptom suppression. All of the medications are band-aids. They're now, especially when you look at disorders of the brain, whether it be mental illness or neurodegeneration, the drugs that they have for these diseases are for long-term use. They're all long-term use. So this chronic medication use, what does it do? It gives you temporary relief and rising dependence. You look at benzodiazepines. Most of the time people get on them, they work for a little while, then they need more, they get switched to another one. You look at the medicines for Alzheimer's disease, even though there hasn't really been any, they tried to bring one out. I think the last one was recent, and it was the first time in 15 years a new drug for Alzheimer's came out. It was only on the market for 6 months due to side effects. But even the Cinemet that's been used for Alzheimer's, it has a dependency and a tolerance. You use it, it gets better, things get better, you got to stop it, it gets better. But eventually the disease wins and Cinemet stops being effective at all. So there's dependence. And then a for-profit medical system is this is what it's supposed to do. We're supposed to make money off of illness. Chronic illness is what drives the whole industry. And so there's really no interest in cures. And when you're dealing with the brain, you can see that's the easiest one to make sick because it controls the rest of the body. So you can see that the limitations are obvious and they're not changing. So functional medicine is a first line for brain care. Most of my career, all you hear is functional medicine and lifestyle medicine, it's great for prevention and adjunctive therapies. It's not first line. It's not thought of first line. It's not discussed as first line. But, from a prevention standpoint, oh yeah, that no doubt. Yeah, you do all these things and better sleep, better diet, better exercise. And yes, you can potentially prevent diseases of the brain. You can reduce the risk of mental illness and all illness. But from a biological standpoint, functional medicine is way ahead of traditional thought philosophies. We know that, and again, it's functional medicine is something that we've known. It's just not mainstream. And so, as we get into this, you're going to see that functional medicine and psychedelic medicine match very nicely. So we talk about how functional medicine is better than traditional medicine, but there's still limitations there too. But the difference is in functional medicine is it's not science that's the limitation, it's adherence and access. Very different from traditional medicine. It's not the labs, it's not the supplements, it's not the protocols that are causing problems, it's adherence and access. We get successes, but we also get the failures. And why are we getting the failures? It's not because of the science. It's because of adherence and access. And what I mean by adherence is in functional medicine, you get to the point where you feel like a motivational speaker because these people come in, you give them the blueprint, you tell them everything they need to do, they get started, and then they come back and they have a reason why they failed. They have a reason why, oh, I know what to do, doc. I just, I'm going to get started tomorrow. I'm still in this. I know what to do. But the protocols don't stick. They're very low motivation, which we understand why. The results plateau. Oh my gosh, I was doing great, and then I just stopped. And they're spending money on habits and not health. This is the reality of functional medicine. We have the tools and we have this small subset of patients that succeed, but why are all the other ones failing when you know you have a blueprint that works? So adherence is the problem, and that's why we get into the mindful side of medicine. But when you look at those slides before and you understand the society's illness, think about asking someone who is already sick to get well. I mean, you're already up against a wall. You're a rock in a hard place. I mean, trying to convince someone that's already in medicine, already in the system, to now all of a sudden want to be disciplined and healthy, it's not easy. And then we have access, which we know there's not enough providers, lack of insurance coverage, and slow consumer adoption. I mean, it's just hard to get people to come in, and now we're starting to see a movement. The food pyramid turned over or flipped over. The redacted the study from 2002 on a women's health initiative on hormones. We're starting to see that this maybe the slow consumer adoption that hey, this functional medicine has some validity, and we should start seeing a lot of people interested in spending money on themselves because they're of these changes. But right now, it's really hard. And so this is exactly why the modern mind is stuck. And this is what really, when you start looking at chronic stimulation that we talked about from the screens, people have their screens open from the minute the alarm goes off, their phone is their alarm clock. They pick that phone up, they're already looking at messages. They're on their computer, their iPad, their phone or their TV all the way up until their bedtime. Nonstop. It's just nonstop chronic stimulation. And so when you have that chronic stimulation, you imagine your body and your brain is in a persistent threat signaling. This puts them in sympathetic tone, and this puts that whole chronic inflammation, insulin resistance loop that people get in. So when it's in the brain, this causes a specific area of the brain to cause thought loops or ruminating, and so now you can see how you can get both physical and mental illness. And when this is all happening, these thought loops in this whole pattern of mental signaling puts you into a stuck pattern. There's so many different ways that you can manipulate yourself to not improve, but it's pretty much at a point where you almost feel bad because people want to succeed, they want health, but when they just can't figure it out, it's not their fault. I mean, this is what society has created. It's something that when modern medicine, who we rely on to tell us how to live and how to be healthy, fails us, we're listening to the experts. These are the people that are supposed to be telling us what to do. And instead, we're stuck sitting there thinking, why do I have no motivation? Why can't I break these loops? And it becomes pretty easy when you start seeing what's happening to the brain. But you can see down at the bottom, modern environment trains the brain for survival, not restoration. And when you're in fight or flight nonstop, it's almost impossible to get out of it. And when you look at the balance of why modern mind is stuck is because behavior drives biology. Our sleep patterns, our emotions, our experiences, our exercise, our diet, these are the things that drive our biology. And then perception drives behavior. So self-worth equals self-care. So when you get stuck in these thought loops, you get stuck to a point where you cannot, tell yourself, this didn't work last time. It's not, I can start tomorrow. Oh, exercise doesn't work for me. I just look at a carb and I gain weight. I mean, these are the thoughts that get in people's heads and they cannot break the patterns. And so what happens is just avoidance and lockdown. And when these things all happen, healthcare advancements slow down and are almost impossible to change. And that's why I like this. I use this quote at the bottom about progress is impossible without change, and those who cannot change their minds can't change anything. That is exactly it. And once you change your mind, everything else can change. But this is exactly the problem and why psychedelics become an answer. So why psychedelics? Perception, response, neuroplasticity, autonomic control. And that is what I mean by bringing the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems together and getting out of that sympathetic tone. And so why psychedelics? The research exists. There's 40, 50 years of research that has been ignored. The mechanisms are understood. We know exactly what psychedelics do to the brain. It's been studied. It's obvious. We know. And there's an undeniable need. So all three of these things are basically walking psychedelics into the door. It's just providers are going to have to open up their eyes and look at it because all of the facts are there for us to be getting further ahead in this type of medicine. So a little brief history on psychedelics. So in the 1940s to the 1960s, this is what I'm talking about research. There was extensive human research, thousands of published research documents, research studies, tens of thousands of research people studied, just tons of great information. And you can go back and look at all these studies. You can watch documentaries on the video research or the video trials where they show these people actively in these research studies. But what happened in the 1960s to the 1970s, there maybe was just too much success with some of the psychedelics when you look at it. And so it's mostly LSD. And there were so many studies going on with LSD that it was so safe. And the studies were bringing up such good response in successes that doctors were sending LSD to doctors all over the country and just saying, hey, try this. You know, it was safe. No one was having any bad outcomes. And what happened was is LSD leaked into the community and started a cultural change. And so basically in the 70s, people wanted to just make love and not go to war and listen to music. And that did not follow political agendas. And so, you know, what happened was, is it, you know, it was out there and there were just, you know, LSD was everywhere. Some, you know, obviously there was underground movements of other psychedelics and you'll see on the timelines that there was a lot of them out there. But what happened is in 1970, they had the Controlled Substance Act. And then in 1971, the United Nations Convention on Psychotropic Substances basically stopped all psychedelic research. So all of these years of psychedelic research that was positive, successful, minimal side effects, you know, unbelievable differences and remember, these are all psychiatrists that were doing this. This was all, you know, Albert Hoffman, running psychiatry and psychotropic interventions and end of life trials. They were finding that psychedelics was far superior to anything else that they had been looking at. But all of a sudden, boom, all of the study and research had stopped. So in the 1970s to the 1990s, they call them the lost years because research had ended. The only thing that you were getting was black market underground doctors that never stopped. And this was happening a lot, but just a small percentage of patients were getting help. But these doctors never stopped. They were doing guided therapies, guided trips, all through those 20 years, but it was just all underground. But most of the momentum stopped. And as you can remember, if you look at this timeline, the 1970s to the 1990s, what happened during that 20 years? Disease. That is when pharmaceuticals started entering into mainstream medicine and the rise of disease in the 1980s. I'll say 1985 particularly, but 1980, shoo, and you look at the stats and it's a parallel. This is when, you know, I mean, you can't make this up. And in the 2000s to 2010 was kind of like the scientific reawakening. 2000, John Hopkins started saying, hey, we're going to open up a psychedelic research facility that's now open. They put all of these millions of dollars into psychedelic research starting in 2000s. And so you started seeing this reawakening, probably because we needed it for one, but also Big Pharma probably said, oh, we can figure out how to make some money on this somehow. And the science started again. But again, remember, there's years of research. You know, John Hopkins can't come and say, hey, we're making progress with our MDA trials because this was already done. They're just resurfacing the data and probably going to bring it out with some novel remedy that, you know, was already discussed into the 1900s. So psychedelics were strong human research. So mescaline comes from the peyote cactus, isolated in the late 1800s, was actually utilized in the early 1900s. found it to be very instrumental in a lot of different psychiatric illnesses. But remember, a lot of these were used for centuries in other cultures. And when someone had any sort of psychotic break or psychosis, they were using natural remedies very successfully. You have MDMA synthesized in 1912, not a true not a hallucinogenic, but it's an empathogen. But we'll talk about that more. Dimethyltryptamine, which is DMT, was synthesized in 1931. Very promising, very short acting, is also the main component in ayahuasca. LSD synthesized in 38, psilocybin 58, ketamine 62, delta 9 THC in 64. Cannabis isn't necessarily it has a ability to cause psychosis, so they did. Some people have it in the psychedelic realm, so it is worth mentioning because there's obviously a lot of therapeutic benefits from cannabis as well. But remember, psychedelic research did not end due to lack of efficacy or safety. It got curbed because of political agendas. Bottom line, these were all had safety, had research that was done safely and effectively. So what about the organic plant-based psychedelics? Psilocybin mushrooms, ayahuasca, ibogaine and iboga, mescaline and peyote and cannabis. All these were studied before SSRIs. Remember, mainstream SSRIs didn't even get started getting studied till the late 60s, early 70s. And I think Prozac was released in 85. They tried TCAs before that, but when Prozac was released, the first year it was released, 2 million scripts. So all of this stuff was studied before SSRIs, found to be successful. All of the research buried and stopped, and then pharmaceuticals started becoming mainstream. So all of these have all similar ways they work, which we'll talk about, little differences, but all of them had success. So why they work? So the common therapeutic properties of psychedelics, one of them is increased neuroplasticity, or you call it adaptation or adapting. And what neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to rewire, bypass bad nerve pathways, improve synaptogenesis, improve neurosignaling. They even say now that it actually causes neurogenesis, which is in creation of new nerve pathways. But it's basically when people talk about adapting is when the brain gets used to the same patterns. When people wake up in the morning and they're into anxiety. Anxiety has started, they got the fight or flight response, their heart's beating. They got these paths that are just ingrained in their brain, just these little paths. And if you think about like skis going down a hill, they think about neuroplasticity as like sprinkling powder on these ruts so that you can kind of go different directions when you're skiing. And that's a nice way to look at it. And then when you look about, creating emotional flexibility is that when people are sick and they're stuck with that chronic inflammation and these ruminations, there's no flexibility. And there's a thing called the default mode network, or DMN. That thing is your personal identity. And when it gets stuck, it's supposed to be flexible, turning off and on and kind of being a governor to how you work in your life. Well, when it gets stuck on or becomes inflexible, that's what causes ruminating. That's what causes people to get stuck and they can't get out of these negative thought patterns. Well, psychedelics cause this it introduces this flexibility and makes the default mode network work properly. And reduce rigid self-narratives is perspectives. Again, you can't expect to have self-care and confidence and self-confidence without self-worth. And when we get stuck in these rigid self-narratives, something has to break. And psychedelics allow you to take a look from a different perspective. And that's one of the things I tell to patients is, if you're not happy right now, if you feel stuck, if you feel suicidal, if you feel so dark or depressed, sometimes it's nice to get out of that environment you're in and take a look from a different vantage point, take a look from a different angle, see it from a different perspective. And when you do, it's enlightening, and all you need is just a little glimmer of hope to create a path of success. And so all of these create in some fashion these types of therapeutic properties. And of course, remember, once you have self-worth, you have self-care, and self-care makes lifestyle medicine. And again, you can see how this is leading into functional medicine. This is what we need. So psychedelic responses, kind of a overview: LSD and psilocybin break the mental ruts, form new patterns. MDMA is like a bridge. It's an empathogen, so it just makes it safer to face hard emotions. And remember, psychedelics is an ability to take a look at yourself without the fear of rejection. That is the uncanny beauty of psychedelics, is being able to look at yourself without rejection. And that alone allows people to explore, visualize themselves when they normally just say, I'm a failure, I can't do this, I'm just going to live the rest of my life this way. You can start seeing that all it takes is, like I said, a glimmer of hope, and psychedelics provide that. Ketamine is a rapid reset of struck brain circuits. It's almost to me like CPR of the brain. Works very quickly, short half-life, short therapy, but very, very powerful. Ayahuasca brings insight and understanding, and ibogaine is works on the dopaminergic system, so it interrupts addiction at the deepest level. The ibogaine studies on addiction have been tremendous, but it's not just drug abuse, it's not just substance abuse, it's addiction of anything. It's addiction to work, it's addiction to sex, it's addiction to gambling, to drugs. People that do ibogaine feel like they come out with a completely reset dopaminergic system, to where sometimes the people tell me they stopped drinking coffee, they stopped they stopped gambling, they all sorts of different dopamine stealing of events can get interrupted with ibogaine. So when you look at psychedelics versus traditional medicine, um, it's very easy to see. I mean, traditional psychiatry, daily dosing, symptom suppression, chronic dependency. You're not getting off of them once you're on them. What they do now with psychiatry is, I have patients coming in and they're not on one SSRI, they're on three. That was something I didn't. I only recently understood that that's happening. I thought, usually when you have a failure in a drug category, you go to a different one or a different drug completely. But adding three SSRIs at the same time is scary. Chronic dependency, as we talked about, with minimal behavior change. And then you look at psychedelics, intermittent use, insight and flexibility. It's opening the learning windows and enhances self-care. So once you add lifestyle into your routine, you're automatically in a prevention mode. And like we said, hopefully that you can start looking at why this would end up being first line. So psychedelics are part of the treatment. They're a catalyst. As you can imagine, all we want is an opportunity. And so when you can open up your mind and you can see things differently, and you're improving the wiring of the brain, you're breaking habits, you're more adaptive, you're shutting off your default mode network, you restore receptivity and you enable change. That's all we're looking for, is the ability to change, because that is the key to all of this. So remember, functional medicine's failures is not from science, it's from adherence. This is why we need psychedelics. It's adherence. If you can change the brain, you can change the mind, you can get someone that actually can start gaining progress. And I'll talk about some of my own observational clinical trials that I've been doing over the last 13 years, so you can understand where this comes from in actual clinical use. But this should make sense to you. I mean, this is they're part of the treatment. They're not replacing the lifestyle. This is psychedelics are a complement or a bridge to opening the door for them to actually do what they're supposed to do. This is why functional medicine doctors have to be so excited, because you can only be a motivational speaker for so long, to where you get frustrated when people fail. That's our jobs as doctors and providers, is that we want results. You sit there and you have this amazing, you walk in this room with amazing plan, and you have someone, oh yes, we're ready to go. And then, 3 months later they come in and nothing's changed. That is frustrating. It's not about the money, it's about our time, and it's about results. And it gets very frustrating in all areas of medicine, but especially for functional medicine, because we rely in a cash-based system on results. And it's not saying that our patients aren't going to say that they're the failure, not us. Like I said, it's not the labs, it's not the doctors, it's not the supplements, it's not the protocols, it's adherence. And they don't understand why they can't change. They don't understand why they're stuck. They don't want to be. So what happens clinically? So this is the cascade. As we talked about, neuroplasticity is first. That's what happens with psychedelics. They get in neuroplasticity, the brain-derived neurotropic factor levels raise. All of these create this window of growth, and with healing, new pathways, new access, stopping the default mode network. And that gives you this opportunity to get that little glimmer of hope a little visualization of who you are and remembering who you are and understanding where you can get to if you put your mind to it. You can call it manifestation, visualization, but it's basically a new perspective. And remember, with a new perspective comes self-worth. You can't do anything without self-worth. And when you have self-worth, you get self-care. And with self-care, you start to get confidence. And with confidence, you start supporting your lifestyle changes. You actually make this part of behaviors. This is my new regimen. And when you have lifestyle changes, you get biological healing. And this is the easiest way to look at it. But when you know that the bottleneck is adherence, you're not even getting started. Take out the neuroplasticity, the new perspective, and self-worth and self-care. You can't even get started. This is the beginning of the path. And this is why functional medicine bottlenecks is because we can't get people past the first steps. And so, again, I'll explain some of my own successes. So this brings in my normal 5 pillars of health is just sleep, diet, exercise, and micronutrients and hormones. But you can add in and make 6 here and actually add psychedelics to the end of it. Hormones is supposed to be on there, but sleep, diet, exercise, micronutrients, and hormone optimization are my 5 normal pillars. But psychedelics to me are definitely a pillar. You could throw aesthetics on there too, potentially, because of what aesthetics can do for some people. But psychedelics is actually to me the first pillar. Again, first line. My whole approach to medicine is to get the mind working first, so that functional medicine protocols will be more adhered to. So here we're at. We're at the psychedelic renaissance now, and in the time of integration. And so what you can see here is this timeline of today. We're 1996. Cannabis was legalized in California. As I already mentioned, John Hopkins began research in 2000. They now have a psychedelic research facility that's up and running. They're already on their MDMA phase 2 trials, and that is run by the MAPS, which is the Multidisciplinary Association of Psychedelic Studies. We already know MDMA works. They've already used it on the military for PTSD. I know plenty of doctors I've talked to that have been running MDMA retreats underground, not underground, truthfully, but they're running them without people knowing, and they've been running them for years and with amazing success, far superior to any pharmaceutical. 2019, psilocybin was decriminalized and legalized in some cities and some states now across the country. 2019, ketamine was mainstream with the release of FDA-approved esketamine or Spravato. But ketamine, again, was studied in the 2000s, 1990 to 2000s with the military. They started using ketamine in clinical use in the early 2000s, which is when I started studying a few of the doctors that were using ketamine. And then, like I said, I've been actually providing ketamine to patients for over 13 years. I've done over almost 6,000 ketamines treatments. And then 2024, cannabis was reclassified from a Schedule 1 to a Schedule 3. And again, with the endocannabinoid system and understanding what cannabis does for seizure thresholds and depression, anxiety, insomnia, it's exciting. And then at 2026 onwards, this is the functional medicine integration. It's coming. It's neuroplasticity and lifestyle. It's functional medicine and biology. This is where we start taking psychedelics, and you now have to integrate it into functional or traditional medicine. Well, we know traditional medicine is not going to play. All they're going to do is try to use the pharmaceutical industry to mimic some of these drugs, some of these natural or plant organic psychedelics. They're going to try to mimic them, and they're going to use the idea that, hey, you use this pharmaceutical, it does the same thing as psilocybin or ayahuasca or ibogaine without the psychosis, without the psychotropic effects. And they've already tried to do that with psilocybin, and the first drug they tried to do it was only out for a few months, and then they took it off the market due to side effects. So they're going to try to do pharmaceuticals of some of the plant-based organic psychedelics, stating that they're going to be better for you because they don't have the psychoactive experiences. We obviously know that doesn't work. And the reason why traditional medicine hasn't moved faster into integrating with psychedelics is because that's not how the model is built. Remember, it's a for-profit system that is used to doing band-aids and suppressing disease and suppressing and trying to treat symptoms. So the only one that makes sense to integrate with psychedelics is functional medicine. They pair so perfectly and actually create an amazing outcome. It's medicine with meaning. So today, what do we have? We have ketamine right now, but as you can see from the landscape of psychedelics, they're coming. It's going to happen, and it's already happening. But right now, what do we have? It's the only psychedelic that's legal in every city across the states. Over 50 years of clinical use. It was isolated in 1962 and 1970. It was approved as an anesthetic. 1985, it was voted by the National Health Institute as a essential medicine, and it's structured. And we say medically safe, I mean really safe. I mean, this got voted one of the safest medicines. It's the most widely used anesthetic in the military and in paramedics. They use it in hospice. The amount that we're using in ketamine in psychedelic therapies is a microdose. So very safe, structured. I mean, there's tons of various protocols, whether it's intramuscular, intravenous, oral, very structured, lots of data on protocols, and very scalable. This is something that functional medicine doctors can scale and build into their models. There's a lot of different ways you can introduce ketamine, but I can tell you from my use of ketamine for all these years, undeniable solution, and especially for those people that are finding that these protocols are looking at the bottleneck of adherence. Introduce ketamine into your model. So this brings up functional medicine is essential. Systems-based thinking, lifestyle expertise, root cause mindset, and long-term relationships. Again, perfectly set to integrate psychedelics. You have the relationship. You're able to take the time to educate. You're cash-based. You're not struck to 7 minutes of time with your patients. It's the perfect setup for you guys to start looking at functional or psychedelic medicine. And so when I talk about my experiences, you know, examples are people that have failed traditional medicine. And it could be mental illness, or it could just be general stuck in life. These people that have 30 to 50 pounds to lose, they've had this 30 or 50 pounds on for 5 years. It's starting to cause arthritis. They're starting to get depressed. They got high cholesterol, high blood pressure. Their doctors are talking about putting them on antidepressants. They just can't break it. They're stuck. Introduce psychedelics. You start a ketamine routine on these people, and I have watched people that couldn't lose weight over 10 years. I've watched people that have been depressed and anxious, ones that have never gone to the gym, people that have stopped their creative thinking. They don't no longer play the piano, they no longer play the guitar. They're not exercising anymore. The relationships are stale. Any one of those, introduce ketamine, and I have watched, boom, just like that. These people start picking up their guitar. I've watched women that have not been able to lose weight in 10 years, maybe 6 pounds here, 8 pounds there. You put them in a ketamine routine with weight loss, some of them lose 30 or 40 pounds in the first 3 months. If you can't you can't do anything without changing your mind. This is just an obvious a way to change or level the playing field when people have chronic inflammation, neuroinflammation, thought loops, are stuck in thought loops and just cannot break them. So what is next? Education, standards, expanded structure, and responsible integration. Because you look at the bottom, our goal is medicinal use, not experimentation. The experiments have been done. The research has been done. What we need is someone to lead what's next, which is we have a scalable solution in ketamine, but we have all those other psychedelics that we can now start using, and you're going to see they're going to become legalized. Cannabis is already pretty much legalized in most states, either medically or recreationally. And that's amazing. And there's so much you can do with cannabis, from pain modulation to reducing depression, circadian rhythm. Psilocybin's coming very quickly. They've already posted research articles that show that psilocybin is 40% more effective at treating anxiety than anxiolytics. And MDMA it's been studied. They're playing around with it, but the research has been done. They already opened up trials in Texas for ibogaine. which is super exciting because, obviously we know in the background that substance abuse is at an all-time high, including fentanyl overdoses and suicide, or overdoses and just suicidal ideation. So we have MDMA that's coming. We have ibogaine that's coming. You still have ayahuasca retreats in various Indian cultures where they are allowed to do it, and then we obviously have ketamine. So hopefully you're going to see a lot of growth in the industry. But it's not going to happen unless we get educated, and as functional medicine providers, we start looking at this opportunity because it's coming regardless. But the more we can get hands-on, the more we're going to find more solutions. And in functional medicine, it's beautiful that we all like to share our successes. It's not like traditional philosophies where everyone's hush hush on their secret way to do surgery or ways that they're doing, getting successes. Whereas in functional medicine, we like to share. So the final takeaway, all right, good. Doing good on time. So the final takeaway is that functional medicine optimizes the body, psychedelics unlock the brain, integration creates lasting change, and all we need to do is just reframe the role of psychedelics, and that's our jobs. And you can see at the bottom, psychedelics may not heal the brain directly, but they may be the reason healing finally begins. That summarizes it. And so here we are with, and it's not saying that you need to adopt psychedelics today, but hopefully this is some information that you may or may not know of. But I hope that you can see from the passion that I have and the amount of time I've spent studying it and using it and the successes I've had that I'm all in. This is my future is, and I'm already doing it, but my future is completely focused on integrating psychedelic medicine into my practice. I already am doing it, but as I go forward, psychedelics are going to be a main component of it because when you can get it first line and start getting people doing psychedelics or starting with ketamine or hopefully psilocybin shortly, and you can get them believing in themselves, their self-worth, and actually adhering to the protocols that we provide them, our results are so much better. And again, like I said, the business side of this is we want results, we want improvements, we want change, and to do so, unfortunately, we're going to have to look at doing things differently. So again, hopefully you can find reason to expand your knowledge. There are a few things that I would say is if you haven't watched the Netflix series called How to Change Your Mind, I would suggest it. It's a deep dive documentary on 5 psychedelics, but I think it's mescaline, LSD, MDMA, peyote, and I think it's ketamine or one other one. But anyway, it's gonna expand on what I just shared with you, but it's a very good introductory into what we're talking about here. Um, so for all of you guys so we have a little bit of time here. So if anyone has any questions, please ask because I know we have about 15 minutes, and then I think Shelley and Casey have a couple things to add after we're done here. So if anyone has questions, please feel free to ask them. And if not, you always can share, send them to us by email or reach out to our team, and we can answer them for you. If not, I will just pass it on to Casey and Shelley and thank everybody for their time. Hopefully they found some good use and good education in this.
You can either come off mute or you can put your question in the chat.
Hi guys, this is Tia. Can you guys hear me?
Hi, Tia.
Yes.
Hi. I just want to let you know that I've been using ketamine for over actually almost 2 years now. Now in a permanent clinic. I actually trained with Dr. Agin, and I'm going to tell you that this is a life changer, life enhancer, life changer for probably I would say 98.9% of my patients that have ketamine treatments. And I've probably infused over 400 infusions right now, which is a pretty good number. And I have seen all kinds of changes in many people's lives from going from I just tried to kill myself yesterday and today I have a real life and family, to just basically what Dr. Agin was stating is I now have confidence in myself and everything is working now, where before nothing was working, no weight peptide, no lifestyle changes, no nothing. I mean, because they didn't believe in themselves. So this is a huge game changer. So for anybody who needs that, which I think everybody's practice does, this is basically the key. Definitely.
Thank you,
I
Tia.
can't wait till the other psychedelics come.
Thank you, Tia.
Brent, I had a question. Are you going to offer training?
Yes, I've done training as Tia just mentioned, and we kind of curbed it. But yes, we are getting back into training. It's with all the recent changes, like I discussed, I'm excited to get back into, I've been doing a lot of trainings on other modalities of functional medicine, but now is the right time to get people going. It's not going away. As you can see, it's coming pretty quickly. So yes, people that are interested in training, Shelley and Casey can share with you. We have both in-person and online training that we offer, and they can talk about the specifics. But yes, very excited about getting more providers locked in.
I believe the next slide has more info on the ketamine training
Oh,
itself. After that one, sorry, one more. Um,
So
very
if
good.
anybody is interested in learning more about either the in-person or the live online training, go ahead and drop your name in the chat or just email Casey or myself after, and we will get back with you on specifics.
Perfect.
Also, Brent, would this be a good time at all? Like, I mean, if somebody was interested in like doing a franchise or having more of a presence in their clinic, that's also something that you'll probably go over in the training as well, right?
Yeah, there's an interest in franchising a model. We're not sure if we're going forward with it, so it's either way. I mean, it's that's going to be an option. Anybody that gets trained that would want to end up into a franchise model would have first opportunity. Obviously, they've already been trained, so it's so that's to be determined.
Right. And I mean, just as a testimonial from myself, I have been using the ketamine treatments for mental focus and kind of it actually changed my career. But anyways, what I would love to say about Dr. Agin's therapy is that he has really gone the extra mile to create all kinds of different things that you get in his treatment that you don't necessarily get in other modalities or other clinics. So all I would like to say is like if you're interested at all, I would strongly recommend that you look into this training so that you have what you need to really do it well. All right.
So
Anything else, Brent?
no, I that was a good overview. Like I said, I hope it's got people understanding what's to come. And there's no stopping it now.
Yes. And we had a large group of people sign up, but a lot of times they do that and do the replay. So we'll be getting that out to everybody and making sure that we have a way to get questions back from you as you start thinking about this. Um, we also have our new platform coming out in 2026. If you do not have a platform with MPC, we are an online ERX platform where you can basically come on to our marketplace and place your orders using our online system. We're DEA certified, which means you can put your controlled orders in through the platform versus having them, have to be printed and scanned and faxed over or called. We also, I'm not going to jump into the CCM module. It was on the previous slide, but we do have a really cool module that's going to come out in our newest launch of our platform. So right now is really truly the best time to get the best pricing. We can give you $300 off the standard platform. I think we're offering $500 off our premier, but it does come with a lot of support. We are always here for you. Casey's here for you as well. We kind of help and become the liaison. We have medical support available, and we have our refill reminders list, which helps keep you guys on point, keeps the therapies going and whatnot. So this is a really cool platform. We're seeing a huge growth in it just here in the last 3 months. I most likely through webinar and social medias, but a lot of people are looking for something that kind of they can just plant themselves in. It's all inside one platform. You don't have to have multiple logins. All of the messaging to the pharmacies is in our platform, which allows us to help you guys get the answers you need right away. If you're interested in a demo on our platform, we'd love to show it to you. It takes about 30 minutes. We usually book an hour just so that you have time for questions and answers, but definitely can be done in 30 minutes. So go ahead. If you're interested, feel free to put your name in the chat. Just say demo. And then we also have trainings available as well. And we have the ability to do those online. Some people want to come in, train right with Dr. Agin. We can set something like that up for you as well. And I'm not sure if we have a slide for that one or not. But we do
There is.
have,
Yeah.
there it is. Yep. The IV therapy training, peptide training, weight loss, hormone optimization, sexual health and rejuvenation. And then again, like I said, we have custom training available as well. And just remember too, when you purchase this training, you do get a complimentary 6 months of medical support for the topic that you trained on. So we want to make sure that you have all the answers, you know what you're doing, you feel confident, and it's just a really a great way to get educated in a more in-depth way. We continuously hear from people, they went to these big trainings, they've got these certifications, but they really don't know how to apply it. Our platform and our training really gives you what you need to feel confident prescribing. So we'd love to help you out, put demo in or training in, ketamine in, we'll reach out to you. And if there's any other questions, feel free to speak up or we will let you out a few minutes early. Casey, do you have anything?
Not that I can think of right now.
Okay. Well,
Thank you,
Casey and I will
everybody.
stay on an extra minute or two in case somebody lingers, but thank you for joining us and you will be getting a follow-up with a replay.